Okay, we're going to move on to the next error in reasoning, which is somewhat related. And I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to get someone else with a nice loud voice from the back of the class to read for us. How about the man with the Seahawks shirt? Can you read for me, nice and loud?
Prosecutor's fallacy is a mistaken reasoning where probabilities are incorrectly calculated. Considering the following example, a red-bearded man with a Jeep Wrangler was spotted at the scene immediately before some crime was committed. Since Sam is a man with a red beard and a Jeep Wrangler, the police take him in for questioning, and the prosecutor is delighted.
All right, so why is the prosecutor happy at this point? They found someone who matched the description, and the description picks out a very improbable character, right? So the description is a Wrangler and a man with a red beard. A man with a red beard who owns the Wrangler. Now, we've been thinking about statistics a little bit today. What do you think? Well, actually, we'll just, what's your name back there at the back? Seahawks shirt? Matthew. Why is the prosecutor delighted? One more time. They found someone matching the description, and it's highly unlikely that anyone matches a description of this description, right? So there's no one in this class with a red beard today, right? Is there anyone with a red beard? I don't see anyone with a red beard. We got a nice brown beard. That's a pretty nice beard. Any other beards? I don't see any beards. Oh yeah, red beard, standing right in front of me. Charles has a red beard. Okay, so Charles, 1 in 88 probability in this class that you will have a red beard. Sorry, Charles, standing right there. Nice red beard. Okay, so the prosecutor's delighted. Now, he's delighted because it's so unlikely that we'd find someone with a red beard and a Jeep Wrangler. And his statisticians inform him that the chance of any one person having both a Wrangler and a red beard is staggeringly small. And this is true. It's highly unlikely that any person chosen at random would fit this description. However, the prosecutor's fallacious inference lies in his inference from the small odds that Sam has both the Wrangler and the red beard to the conclusion that Charles is the perpetrator. What are you driving, Charles?
A Volvo.
A Volvo. Very nice. Yeah. Okay. You're not the perpetrator. You're safe. Okay, so how do we know he's made a mistake here? So what's the first thing you think about? He's wrong about this. The prosecutor is wrong. And this happens all the time. All the time. Especially for African Americans, guys.
They weren't looking for someone randomly. They were looking for that specific set.
That's true. That's true. But even if the perpetrator has a red beard and drives a Wrangler, what do we say about that? Any ideas? Okay, so what's the first thing, I guess it wasn't Cade, it was someone else, talked about? We talked about sample size, right? Okay, so what is the relevant sample size for deciding whether Sam, the red-bearded Wrangler man, is likely to be the criminal or not? What's the relevant sample? What's the first thing we have to ask? Maud, Marjorie, Muriel.
There could be other people with a red beard who drive a Jeep.
Very good. Very good. So there certainly are other people who have red beards and drive a Wrangler. Any person chosen at random is unlikely to fit that description, but of, let's say it's Charles, red beard and Volvo, what would Charles correctly say to the prosecutor? He would say, Muriel?
There could be other people.
There are other people.
Who drive a Jeep Wrangler and have a red beard.
Right. I am one of that sample. Okay? just because it's unlikely that anyone in this class has a red beard and a Volvo, right? Charles is the only one in this class who has a red beard and a Volvo, right? Doesn't mean that if the criminal had a red beard and a Volvo, that Charles is that criminal. Why? Because there is a large set of people with red beards and Volvos. Make sense? Sarah?
Also, a beard is something you can change.
Oh yeah, that's true too. You could shave your beard off. Right. Very good. Very good. Precisely right. Mm-hmm.
So the problem with this is he's automatically assuming he did it.
Yes. So if you are
Not
a...
actually investigating.
He's saying, what are the chances that someone has a red beard and a Volvo? Staggeringly small that anyone chosen at random would have those characteristics. Therefore, he's likely to be the perpetrator. The mistake is he's conflated two sets of probabilities. Okay? The probability that someone chosen at random fits the description, which is small, and the probability that he is the one of those who fit the description. Okay? Does that make sense? Let's walk through it. So just back of the envelope calculation. So let's say we're in LA. So this is going to vary depending on the sample size of the people under consideration. So if we're in a tiny, tiny town, let's say in Kansas somewhere, right? And we see this, then the sample size of red-bearded Jeep drivers is going to be small, right? But if we're in LA, there's about nearly 10 million people live in LA. How many people have Jeep Wranglers and red beards in LA? So, you're like, how could we possibly know that? This is one of the things you learn in this class is you can know an awful lot of things roughly and correctly, right? So you can start doing quick back-of-the-envelope calculations for likelihoods pretty easily. So let's do one. So we can begin to make a rough estimate that given that we know there's 6 million vehicles registered in LA, in the county, right? How would we know that, by the way? Well, you have a phone. You can look that up, right? How many cars registered in LA County? You can look that up. Okay. But let's say you couldn't look it up. How many cars registered in Douglas County, our county? You say you have no idea. You do. You have a pretty good idea. How many cars per person? 8 cars per person?
0.8, like rounded up.
Okay.
Just one per person. Not everybody has a car.
Not everyone has a car. Children don't have cars. Prisoners don't have cars. Yeah. Okay. So how many cars how many people in Douglas County? You're wrong, but let's say you're right. 80,000. Let's say there's 80,000 people in Douglas County. There are more, but let's say it's 80,000. It doesn't matter. We just need a rough idea. How many people in Douglas County? 80,000, let's say. It's a good guess, right? Yeah? Okay, how many cars in Douglas County? Are there 80,000 cars? No. Are there 200,000 cars? No. How do you know there aren't 200,000 cars registered in Douglas County? Seriously? How do you know? AJ? Yeah, I mean, that would mean that everyone would have some large number of cars, including the children, I guess, yeah? That's not going to happen. It's not going to be the case. So roughly, how many cars do you think, let's say there's a car for every 2 people. There are 40,000 cars registered in Douglas County. Now, am I right about that? No, I'm not right about that. But is it enough to figure out how many red-bearded Jeep drivers there are in Douglas County? Yeah, with a few more pieces of information, now we can figure out how many red-bearded Jeep drivers there are in Douglas County, right? This is actually, you can do this. You can reason about these things in pretty reliable ways, Sarah.
But there's cars that are registered in other counties and are still in this county.
That's true too, yeah, that's true. Especially because of KU, right? Yeah, that's true. All true. So how many cars, Sarah, do you think are registered in other counties but spend the night in Douglas County? Let's say KU students own cars and most KU students are not from Douglas County. Let's say they own them at the same rate as the people of Douglas County, yeah? Right, you can begin to figure out, okay, maybe there are 10,000 cars in the county that spend the night here but aren't registered here, right? Back of the envelope calculation. We don't have to be right about this, but we're reasoning in approximate ways, but in the right direction. You'll see how this plays out. So we can begin to make a rough estimate that given what we know, let's say there's 6 million vehicles registered in LA County, and between 2 and 6% of the population has red hair, right? How do we know that? We look it up. Red hair is vague. I mean, do you think you have red hair?
No.
You kind of do.
My beard's red.
Your beard's red. Yeah, when my beard comes in, well, it used to be before I went gray, my beard would be red, right? Yeah? Okay, so do I count as a red-haired person? Sure. Why not? So how many people in the class think they have red hair? Hands up. Well, you definitely do. Hands up.
A little less thinking.
You have one. Are you're yeah. Hands up, nice and high, nice and high. 3 people definitely think they have red hair, which is about right, between 2 and 6% of the population, right? And I'd probably categorize some of you who think you have blonde hair or brown hair as having red hair. It varies, it's vague. Doesn't matter that it's vague. So these aren't precise numbers, but you can find statistics like this. So given these numbers then, we can estimate that there are between 116,000 and 348,000 cars in LA County owned by red-haired people. Okay, that's a big range. It's not very precise. Let's assume that half of these cars are owned by men, which is probably false because men own more cars than women, presumably, I would guess. But let's say it's 50-50. And then how do you figure out who has a beard? Oh, it's really hard. How many beards? Hands up if you have a beard, because I don't want to have to scan. 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have a beard. All right, so there's another beard. That's barely a beard, dude. All right, so okay, beard. All right, so you have a beard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so varying, changing fashions, etc. But roughly, where did we say? Like, for example, in 1970, 58% of British men had beards. So let's assume that 10% of men are bearded in 2017, which actually was almost exactly our number in this class. I would say around 10% of men have beards. Yeah? Okay, so this means that there are between 5,800 and 17,400, again, a big range, of red-bearded car owners in LA County. And how many of them own a Jeep Wrangler? Well, that's a hard thing to find out. So that's difficult to figure out. But let's say the numbers are reliable, that there are around 200,000 Wranglers sold in the United States in 2012. 9 million new passenger cars were sold in the United States that year in 2012. So this means that roughly 2% of all the cars sold in the United States are Jeep Wranglers. So 2% of the cars that are sold, roughly, are Jeep Wranglers. So let's assume that that's a roughly stable number, even though, again, it fluctuates with fashion. So now we can take the estimate of the number of red-bearded car owners between 5,800 and 17,400, calculate the number of men who own Wranglers, 2%. And then we have a total population in LA County of between 116 and 348 people. So there are this number, between 116 roughly and between 348 roughly, folks who fit the description in LA County. Yeah? So, would you convict Charles if he's one of between 116 and 348? You would not. Okay? So, we did this kind of back of the envelope calculation just to show the jury that the prosecutor should be much less confident that Charles here is a legitimate suspect. So given our calculations, Sam should be considered as having at most a 1 in 100 chance of being the suspect. Okay? So taken by itself, the fact that he fits the description shouldn't convict him. So the mistake here that he made, that the prosecutor made, was to miss the fact that any one of these folks could have been the guilty one. And so it's true that having a Wrangler and a red beard is super improbable. It's still not going to send him to jail. It's not evidence good enough to